All right, if this is your first time, get the notepad out, clean, fresh notepad, nothing on it. You want to focus, triggers, simplicity. Be ready for some live fire. Pause it if you have to. We're looking for buzzwords to get questions right. We're not trying to read 25 pages. We're trying to get buzz questions to hit the multiple choice correctly. All right, buzzwords. All right. So here we're going to talk about the administrator, which basically Series 65 could be the SIE probably, could be someone the 6. You know, it's been a minute. I didn't even have to take the SIE. That's fairly new. So let's work on this and see what we can get through, all right? Make this thing happen. So the administrator, all right? So let's look to the right side first. Rulemaking power, investigative power, adjudicative value. I knew I was going to do that, all right? But the bottom line is this. What are we looking for on the test, and what are we trying to figure out? All right? Amend and rescind rules and orders. All right? Subpoena is a key word. They can subpoena records and they can subpoena witnesses. All right? And they can share information with other states and SEC. So in other words, if they need information from that state, they can do that. All right? And there's been a question on that. Remember, we're looking for questions and we're looking for buzzwords. So there'll be things related to that. So if you write down administrator, you want to write down amend, rescind, make rules. You want to write down looking for the word subpoena in the question related to either records or witnesses, which really doesn't matter because the word subpoena is the key word. And then we're looking for can share information out of state, all right, for wrongdoings as far as that's concerned. Down here, talks about holding hearings. Make a note. The hearing needs to be within 15 days after the cease and desist or whenever the stop date. Within 15 days, opportunity for a hearing to say, hey, you know what, as an agent, you know what, I think you're incorrect in what you're doing. Well, show it to me within the 15 days of the hearing. All right, and getting that done and make that happen. State enforces Uniform Securities Act. So whenever you see Uniform Securities Act, you add equals state. All right, you want to be able to understand that. Administrators appointed. They are not elected. All right. You may see a question where it says they can act in public interest, which sounds like common sense as far as that's concerned, right? Public interest is a key word for the test. These are things that are actually going to be on the questions, all right, as far as that's concerned. Yes, you can read 12 pages on what administrator is, or we can get the buzzwords to get the few questions right. Anti-fraud, I think that's common sense. It's the most tested rule. Always, always, always anti-fraud. Right? No one's exempt from anti-fraud. I think that's kind of common sense. All right? And you can read here on the left what it covers. Anything that sounds illegal. Omission of a material fact sounds, like it's fraudulent, right? On purpose, doing that. Schemes, the word itself sounds like it's fraud. All right? You can pretty much manipulative, go through these. Matter of fact, you just want to go through. There's market manipulations, right, and things like that. We have a video on that alone, understanding that. What states cannot do, all right? Required registration of federal covered securities. I always want you to think with federal, it's kind of like hands-off for the most part. Impose merit review on federal covered securities. Override SEC registration. No, nothing overrides SEC. They're the big daddy over all 50 states, right? Revoke federal registration. Are you noticing the theme here? Federal, right? Prohibit sales of federally covered securities. All right, in doing that. Now, you may sit there and write down every one, or you can sit there and say, okay, anything related to federal covered securities, chances are the states are going to be overridden, all right, as far as that's concerned. There's one concept that we're going to talk about that the state will want to do. Talk about notice filing. We'll get there in a second. All right, so that's kind of like the buzzwords. Anti-fraud pretty much is common sense on the left. Just the words alone make you think that. And then on the right-hand side, when we start getting to federal covered securities, it's probably hands-off. Just read the question and make sure you understand it. Now, this is definitely testable. 100%. That's why we put this in here. All right? Now, agent in state A, client in state B, both have jurisdiction. All right? Why? Offer originates in A and received in B. Okay? So they both have jurisdiction. Let's go down to the one in the middle on the left side. Client in state A visits agent in state B. Both still have jurisdiction. Offer made in B, client resident is in A. Offer to exist clients who moves. State of new resident has jurisdiction. Follows where the offer is received. Always think about that. So here's your note. Where was the offer? Where was it received? Where's the offer? Where was it received? Okay? And that will help you. Email sent from state A to state B. Electronic offers are treated same as in person. Both. Federal covered security fraud. State retains anti-fraud authority. All right? Remember, anti-fraud is open no matter what state or Fed, no matter what. Okay? Transaction completed outside of state. State still has jurisdiction if offer was inside. Jurisdiction attaches at the offer stage. All right? So my point is, I want you to make a note here. When I get to a question, this is what we're trying to get to. When I get to a question, this is why we do this, that has agent in A, client in B, whatever it is, I want you to read, make a note of this, read the explanation, make sure you understand it, all right? Because you want to get clarity on that. And always go back to offers. Was it offered in the state? Was it received in the state? Did it originate in the state? All right? Was it made in the state? Those are pretty much the buzzwords that you're going to get down for the administrative. Investigation, subpoenas, and enforcement. On the right is what we want to focus on. Okay? Civil penalties, criminal penalties, and administrative. Civil, up to $5,000 per violation. All right? We want to get that $5,000. We want to make sure we understand that. We want to understand with criminal, it's 3 and 5, up to 3 years imprisonment, $5,000 fine per offense. Okay? Administrative. We're going to come back to this in a minute. Administrative. Registration, denial, suspension, revocation. Cease and desist order is a famous line on the test. So I want to give you triggers. So write down cease and desist order. No court order needed for cease and desist. All right? Suspension can be immediate. It's before the hearing. You never do it after hearing. Wait a minute, you're doing illegal things today. Let's wait 15 days and let you keep doing illegal things for 15 days. No. Suspension now. Hearing in 15 days. That's a question. Hearing in 15 days after the suspension. All right? You don't suspend them, wait until after you have the hearing. No. You suspension now. And then the hearing's in 15 days. All right? You can obviously barf in the industry for the right things, all right, for them doing the wrong things, all right? On the left-hand side, some of these things are pretty obvious. You can pause and read through those, but the buzzwords again, subpoena, right, is a buzzword. Cease and desist is a buzzword you want to write down. All right? 3 and 5 you want to make sure you know. $5,000 per violation. All right? You can get restitution for court-ordered restitution. You can get disgorgement of profits, and you can get injunctions against future violations. All right, but the main one's going to be the $5,000 and court order restitution. All right, and then making sure that we understand 3 and 5. We understand cease and desist. We understand the hearing is in 15 days. Gave you a couple answers there. All right, that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to gut 2, 3, 4 answers from each section, and you just read it over and over and over again. Registration, denial, suspension, and revocation. You look at all this noise here, but you may only get 2 questions on it. So let's try to gut it. All right. It says denial revocation requires both valid legal ground and action in public interest. The question is going to have public interest in, chances are, or an answer. If it's in the best interest. I think that's common sense, right? To have temporary suspension. And then we'll give you how long to have a hearing? That's right, 15 days. All right, grounds for denial, summary suspension, and withdrawal. Now, grounds for denial are things, now watch, I want to give you tricks in the questions. That's what we're trying to do. I'm not trying to get you to memorize 9 bullet points. I don't know how many there are. 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not trying to get you to remember 8 bullet points. I'm trying to pay attention, from the bullet points to get a trick on the question or a nugget on the question or a trigger word. All right? So don't just write everything down. Grounds for denial, willful violation of security laws. I think that's common sense. Now, here's what I want you to get. Conviction of securities-related felony, 10 years. Now, here's what I want you to get. In the question, it may say conviction, 8 years, conviction, 12 years, all right? So the trigger is if it's over 10, then that's not grounds for denials necessarily, okay? But here's what I want you to get. In the question, they will say charged with a securities-related felony 6 years ago. Me included and others fall for the trick. Charged, not convicted. Charged means you're innocent until proven what? Guilty. Suppose they say, oh, you didn't do this. All right, drop the case. Well, how can you be denied? You can't be denied until you're convicted. So make a note, conviction versus charged. We're just trying to get questions. All right, I've given you buzzwords. Stay focused on the buzzwords. All right, don't get cluttered. I think misleading is common sense. Insolvency is common sense. All right, so these are all dishonest, common sense. All right, as far as that's concerned. All right, with me on that? You cannot, it says lack of qualifications or training. You cannot, here's a buzzword. This is a question. So these are like, as I'm saying this, like 3 or 4 of these came on the test. Lack of education or lack of knowledge, lack of experience. I'm like, I can't get experience until I do it. So how can I be, denied for lack of experience if I don't have any, right? That's a question, okay? In doing that, remember, convicted versus charged I want you to get. These other words are common sense. I want you to get lack of education, all right, or lack of knowledge, all right, as far as that's concerned. Okay? Now, we're going backwards. Next one. Notice filing. I want you to get this. States cannot require full registration of federal covered insured security. But, you've got to get this. You may get a question that says, well, with federal covered securities, an admin cannot, or an admin can. All right, they can do notice filing and pay a fee. They want their fee. You live in Georgia, that's great, and your license allows you to do 50 states, and you're going to go do Nevada. Okay, well, that's good, but I want my notice filing and I want my fee. Okay? I want my fee. So watch, federal covered securities. You can go through this list here. Anything on an exchange is a federal covered security on these 3 exchanges, right? Sorry about that. These 3 exchanges. Mutual funds. All right, you can go through these and go through them and look at them if you want. But I want to focus on notice filing. I want you to focus on one thing here, that the exchanges is federal. I want you to get that, and the mutual funds are federal. All right? And that they're exempt under 506 Reg D. Matter of fact, if you want to know what Reg D is, 506 Reg D, we've gotten to that. We'll get to that on another video. We've already done it, but you just got to get exposed to it. But if you want to know what it is, do a quick search. All right? What is Reg 506 Reg D for the Series 65 exam, SIE, 6, whatever it applies to. All right? And knowing that. Notice filing. Federal covered advisors with office in state must notice file. All right? Must notice file. Notice filing is what they want. Okay? So get that down. I want you to understand that. That an administrator wants you to notice file in case they need to use that to get some information in case they need to research something. We're going to talk about that in a second. All right, right here. Consent to service a process. All right. Required all registrants, IAR, broker, dealer, or agent, right? Allows administrator to receive legal papers on behalf of the registrant. That's what the notice filing does. If you live in Georgia and then you do business in Nevada says, okay, you helped the clients here. But you know what? I still got to make sure you're doing things legally and ethically. But all of a sudden, if you get out of Dodge and you just did some illegal thing, any mailings, different things that come, I want to be able to have access to any legal papers that come in so I can see what the heck's going on. Okay, which makes sense. All right? So that's the one thing I want you to get, how they can require that and understand it. All right? Registration by coordination. I want you to write down coordination equals SEC. Coordination equals SEC. Coordination equals SEC. All right? And get that down. You can see the 3 methods down the bottom. All right? Understanding that. You can read the rest of that if you like, but I'm trying to get you a question or 2 out of 3 out of this. Coordination, SEC. Usually with IPOs or large public offerings. More than one state, right? SEC is involved. Let's go down here to qualification. State reviews independently. Securities are not registered with the SEC. Qualifications potentially one state. Notice following notice, copy of Fed docs and fee. Federal covered securities and advisors. Remember, that has to do with the Fed. Federal covered securities and federal covered advisors. I want my fee and I want to be able to receive legal papers in case I need to. Okay? So you want to be able to get that down. Now, 10 tricky exam questions. Federal covered securities trap. Investigates fraudulently activity. I just wanted to get through this to get these things on the side here. Federal covered security trap. States cannot require registration of federal covered securities but retain anti-fraud authority. Everybody retains anti-fraud authority. Okay? Got it? States cannot require, I'm going to say it again, registration of federal covered securities, but they can require what? That's right, notice filing. Okay, get that in your head. You're going to see that if you haven't already. Registration is not equal approval. Registration only means requirements were satisfied. Get that in your head that they never, an administrator never endorses, never approval, never recommend. You will have a question in your practice and probably in the real that will say approval, endorsed, recommendation of the administrator or something of the sort. You may get it in the real one. You may not. A lot of us will. A lot of you will. Some of you may not. But understand, no endorsements, no approval, no recommendation. It is just saying you've met the requirements. Investigation without proof. Administrator may investigate without proving wrongdoing, probate cause, or a court order. All right, it says none of the above. I don't have the actual question here because I just wanted to gut what the answer was on the right-hand side. I want to gut what it is, okay? What the mindset is and clean the clutter out. So you got to understand they can investigation without proof. Exempt security trap. Exempt securities may be investigated for fraud. Exemption from registration does not exempt from anti-fraud laws. That's common sense. Fraud applies, period. End of story. Get that in your brain. Next one, withdrawal timing trap. After 30 days. 30 days automatic effectiveness unless proceeding begin or administrator acts. Okay? So you just know it's straight 30 days. Watch out for all the buzzwords and try to get you to think otherwise. All right? Jurisdiction trap. Offer directed from or into a state jurisdiction. Email, we said that early in the beginning, email is the same as a person. So remember, if they ask me an email question from state A to state B, it doesn't matter. Okay? Summary suspension trap. All right? Summary actions happen first. Hearing rights come afterward, never before. Administrator may act before a hearing. That's what the question is saying. All right? That's what they're saying. I'm trying to gut it so you just focus on the main thing, is that the administrator can shut you down, but then the hearing's got to come after. And remember, how long's the hearing? 15 days. Within 15 days. 8. Federal covered advisor trap. They want notice filing. The administrator does. Remember, these are all administrator questions. State requires full AI registration of federal covered advisors, but but can require notice filing. All right? Cannot, let me back up. States cannot require registration of federal coverage advisors. I'm telling you, these are questions. But can require notice filing. They are going to try, I say it over and over again till it's monotonous. And if it's monotonous, boring, good. Because you need to hear it until you get the question right. But can require notice filing. Now, let's go to administrative power trap. NASAA combines multiple valid grounds, insolvency and law violation and public interest, all valid, I should say. So in other words, it means they have the right to get involved when these things are happening. Okay? And it will become common sense. Here we go. Consent to service of process. You remember that? We talked about back on that one slide, right? Here. Bullet point number 2. This is going to be a question, chances are. You're going to see it, whether it's Kaplan, Achievable, or whoever you use, you're going to see it 42 different times there. But here it says act as a registrant's legal agent for lawsuits. See, remember, let's do it again. If I'm in Georgia and help somebody in Nevada, I'm not there. I get out of Dodge. Well, they want me to file notice filing over in Nevada. We will make sure you have this down. That way, if I get out of Dodge, any legal lawsuit that's sent to that state, the administrator has the right to pull that, see what the heck's going on so they can straighten this out. So lawsuits can be served through the administrator. There's no endorsement, no guarantee, no waiver. Whoops, I'm on the wrong one. Did I get on the wrong one? No, I thought I messed myself up. All right, this is live fire. Lawsuits can be served through the administrator, no endorsement, guarantee, no waiver. All right? So this is the key right here. They're a legal agent for lawsuits in that state, like the Georgia and Nevada example I just gave you. All right? Anti-fraud always applies. Always, always, always applies. Okay? Administrator cheat sheet. Let's pull it together. Rules to memorize. Now, before we get to this, if you have your sheet, your notes, you should just be having all these simple triggers written down to help you get through the question. All right? Just the simple triggers to be able to do that. And you go back through, make it easy on yourself. So administrator, anti-fraud, common sense. All right, we're going to go left to right on this one. Let's go down. From or into equals jurisdiction. If an offer originates in or is received in your state, okay? If you're stuck, go back to the slide in the beginning. They covered that. State A, State B. Also, listen to me. If that comes up on a question, when you answer it, right or wrong, read through the explanation. Make sure you get clear on that. I definitely remember seeing that question, okay, over and over again. Withdrawal takes 30 days. Registration withdrawal is effective after 30 days if no proceedings are pending. All right. Investigate first, prove later. Administrator needs no probable cause. Remember we talked about why? Because the hearing's in what? 15 days. You're doing something illegal today. Well, keep doing illegal for 15 days to the hearing. No. I said that earlier, right? We're going to shut you down today because we think something's up. We're going to have the hearing. If today's the 1st of the month, we're going to have a hearing by the 16th. Okay? And at that hearing, prove to me I'm wrong, or if I'm right, you're done. All right? That's what that says. Administrator, no probable cause, no court order, no proof of wrongdoing, no open investigation. So just do it. Summary first, hearing after. I just went through that. Suspension immediate. You just got the story on that. Hearing in 15 days. If you get the question on 15 days incorrect, you haven't been paying attention to this video. All right. So we talked about from and into jurisdiction. Let's go. We're going this way again. This way now. Registration does not equal approval. Registration only means requirements were met. That's all it means. No approval. We talked about that. Federal coverage securities equals notice only. States cannot register. They can only notice follow. You seeing the trend here? You seeing they're saying that we're doing the same thing over and over in a different angle with different charts to get you to see the same 6 things over that you can nail in this test? This is a big part of the test. This and a couple other areas could be 20, 30, 40% of the test. Okay? Let's go through this again. Withdrawal takes 30 days. Sometimes I go all over the place. You say, well, that's on purpose to get you to hear it again. Registration withdrawals effective after 30 days. All right? Consent equals legal service agent. Consent to serve a process makes the administrator the registrant's agent for receiving lawsuits. You've said that 4 times. Good. Let's say it another one. Okay, because you got to get it right. You'll be grateful that you can speed this up and get it in your brain. Public interest equals required. Denial revocation requires both a valid legal ground and the action is in the public's best interest. Okay? Here it is. Once again, can and cannot. And you can go through this. All right? And have a good idea. You can pause this and just review it. Say them out loud if you need to, but it's just a reiteration of what we just went over. Okay? Again, here it is. Subpoenas. All right? We go over and over again. Notice filing. Anti-fraud, of course. We can suspend, deny, revoke. Cease and desist, I said earlier, is what? A big-time word on the test. Civil penalties. No, it's $5,000 for a violation. All right? Require consent to serve as a process. I just gave you your buzzwords of all the noise we just went through in the last 15 minutes or whatever it was. Those are the nuggets for an administrator can do. For what they cannot do, if you're writing a cannot do list, is require federal covered securities registration. All right? And doing that. Revoke or override SEC. Right? Prohibit sales of federal securities. Absent fraud. Fraud overrides everything. All right? Require registration of federal covered advisors. Can't do that, but we can what? Give me a notice filing fee. All right, in doing that. Investigate without authority under the act. Impose criminal penalties. That's courts. Get that in your head. All right, so here's all I want you got to be careful. They're going to try and trick you on this. You got to know what's a court decision and what's an administrator decision. You cannot impose criminal penalties. You can say, look, man, we suspended this guy or gal because, why? Something's up. We're going to have a hearing in 15 days. After 15 days, you know what? Something's not right here. Now we go next level. Go in court. Court takes care of it. Penalties. Boom. All right? They do not act outside their state's jurisdiction, but they can get information outside. They do not guarantee. They do not endorse. They do not improve. All right? And anti-fraud is always in place as far as that's concerned. Okay? Make sense? Hopefully you got some key buzzwords. These last couple pages, you take the nuggets from it. You'll get the job done and make it happen.